There are moments when life no longer feels like something we hold, but something that slips between our fingers. A lost job, a relationship collapsing quietly, or just the slow erosion caused by the noise, demands, and chaos of ordinary days. In times like these, the world doesn't feel like a place we belong. It feels like a weight we can't carry. But what if I told you, there is a way not only to withstand these seasons, but to grow stronger through them? Today, you and I will walk together through the timeless mind of Seneca, a man who learned to stay grounded in a world built to unbalance us. Not just a thinker, but a craftsman of mental strength. His letters were not written to impress, they were weapons against despair, and through them, we'll explore a path to something rare in modern life, internal calm that doesn't depend on external order. By the end of this letter, you'll carry with you a small arsenal, a set of Stoic tools forged to help you reclaim your emotions, your reactions, and ultimately your presence. This isn't a lesson in pretending everything is fine. It's a call to become the kind of man who can stand firm, even when everything around him shifts. But before we begin, I'll ask something simple. If this journey speaks to you, subscribe. It helps us reach others who feel what you feel, but have no words for it yet. And if you're still here reading, you're not like most. You're someone who values depth over dopamine. Welcome. Now take a breath, we're going deep. And the first truth we'll uncover is one that goes against everything our modern culture celebrates. Why doing one thing fully may be the most powerful act of freedom you'll ever choose. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. Seneca wrote those words not as a poetic metaphor, but as a warning. And it's more relevant now than ever. We live in an age that glorifies speed. Multitasking has become a badge of honor. We juggle conversations, deadlines, notifications, then wonder why we feel scattered, anxious, or perpetually behind. But the Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Depth is more valuable than velocity. Presence more powerful than productivity. To do one thing well fully is not small, it is revolutionary. Seneca's warning echoes in the way we move through modern life. We chase 10 priorities at once and finish none. We start a task and check our phone halfway through. We talk while typing, scroll while thinking, live while distracted. And we call that normal. But there's nothing normal about being mentally divided. Attention is a finite resource, and every time you split it, you dilute your presence. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in the dead of night, said, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman. Do what's in front of you, with precision, seriousness, and justice." That's not just ancient advice. It's a survival strategy for modern minds. When you give yourself fully to one task, just one, you reclaim something sacred. Your mind becomes quiet. Your anxiety fades. Your sense of meaning returns. And this isn't just about productivity, it's about character. Because the way you do one thing is often the way you do everything. Scattered work reflects a scattered soul. Rushed actions reveal restless intent. But when you slow down, when you choose to do one thing with presence and care, you create clarity in the chaos. And more than that, you build strength. Because presence is not weakness, it's discipline. It's refusing to be seduced by the illusion that more is always better. So begin to treat each task, no matter how small, as an arena. A place where you practice showing up fully. Whether it's writing an email, cleaning your home, or speaking to someone you love, make it a temple of your attention. The modern world will try to pull you in every direction, but the Stoic chooses one and walks it with depth. In the next insight, you'll discover why mastering your impulses may be the key to mastering your entire emotional life. We're about to explore how philosophy becomes the tool that makes your mind stronger than your reflexes. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest misfortunes come from an undisciplined mind, not from what happens to us, but from how we let ourselves respond, unexamined, unrestrained. In every one of us there are sparks, tiny bursts of emotion that beg for immediate expression. Anger, fear, desire, impatience. Most people spend their lives reacting to these sparks, letting them catch fire, destroying relationships, peace of mind, or opportunity in the process. But here's the truth. You are not your impulse. You are the man who chooses what to do with it. And that choice, that space between impulse and action, is where character is built. The Stoics didn't tell us to suppress emotion. They taught us to understand it, to stand still long enough to see what it's asking for and whether it deserves a response. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And what is self-mastery, if not the ability to pause when the world expects a reaction? Modern life conditions us to move fast, to answer before thinking, to comment before reflecting, to act before feeling the full weight of a decision. But you don't have to live like that. You can slow the moment. You can challenge the automatic. You can look an emotion in the eye and say, "I hear you, but I will choose." Aristotle called this the golden mean, the disciplined balance between excess and deficiency. Courage is not fearlessness. It's the measured walk between recklessness and avoidance. Likewise, self-control is not silence. It's intention. It's the ability to sit with discomfort long enough to hear what it's teaching you. Imagine what becomes possible when you no longer obey your impulses, but interrogate them. You gain access to clarity, to calm, to a kind of quiet confidence that comes not from denial, but from understanding. This is how Stoicism becomes more than a philosophy. It becomes your personal guardrail, your inner filter, your reminder that you are not a slave to your first thought, nor to your first feeling. In the next reflection, we'll walk through the ancient practice of preparing for adversity before it arrives. What Seneca taught about mental preparation may be the single greatest armor you ever wear. What if I told you that most people suffer twice? Once when pain arrives and once before in the anxiety of pretending it never will. Seneca wrote, "Rehearse them in your mind. Exile, torture, war, shipwreck, all the terms of our human lot should be before our eyes." At first glance, it sounds morbid, but dig deeper and you'll find one of the most powerful practices ever created for inner resilience. Premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity, not to invite misfortune, but to strip it of its surprise. The Stoics knew that what breaks a man isn't hardship itself, it's unpreparedness. It's the panic that erupts when illusion meets reality. But when you've walked through the fire in your mind first, the real flame doesn't consume you, it tempers you. Think of an athlete who trains with extra weight. Come game day, he moves lighter, faster, freer. Why? Because he trained for intensity beyond what would be asked of him. You can do the same with your mind. Visualize the loss, the setback, the betrayal, the financial storm, the news you pray never comes, not as a pessimist, but as a Stoic, a man who chooses to meet fate with readiness instead of resistance. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you calm. It doesn't eliminate pain, it removes panic. By mentally rehearsing difficulty, you prepare the inner ground to absorb the shock. And something else happens. Gratitude sharpens. When you've imagined losing what you have, you hold it differently. You love more presently. You see clearly what used to blur into routine. So don't run from discomfort. Meet it in your thoughts before it finds you in the world. And when life finally calls you to the arena, you won't arrive unarmed. In the next lesson, we'll walk directly into discomfort, on purpose. Because the Stoics didn't just prepare for pain, they trained with it. Most people spend their lives avoiding difficulty. The Stoic seeks it deliberately. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor strengthens the body." This isn't masochism, it's preparation. It's the conscious choice to lean into what most run from, so that when life gets hard, your mind doesn't collapse. Voluntary discomfort is one of the most powerful practices in the Stoic toolkit. Why? Because it builds proof. Every time you choose the harder path, you collect silent evidence that you can endure. You train your nervous system to remain stable under pressure. You rewire your identity. From someone who avoids pain to someone who transforms through it. This could mean speaking when you'd rather stay silent, waking early when comfort says later, fasting, cold, effort, restraint. Each small act of chosen difficulty is a rep, and every rep builds mental muscle. It's not about proving anything to the world. It's about proving something to yourself, that your limits are negotiable, that fear doesn't always require obedience, That discomfort isn't always a threat. It can be a teacher. And over time, something shifts. What once paralyzed you becomes manageable. What once overwhelmed you becomes routine. What once seemed impossible becomes just another step forward. You start to realize, real confidence doesn't come from ease. It comes from exposure. From walking straight into what used to scare you and saying, I'm still here, I'm still standing. In a culture addicted to convenience, voluntary hardship is rebellion. But it's the kind of rebellion that sets you free. Because when you train in discomfort by choice, you become nearly impossible to break by force. The next insight may liberate you from a pattern you didn't even know was holding you back. Let's talk about the subtle trap of self-victimization and the Stoic way out. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And what he meant is this: much of our pain doesn't come from what happens, but from the stories we tell ourselves about it. We replay the scene, we assign blame, we dramatize the injustice, and somewhere along the way, we crown ourselves the victim. But Stoicism offers a harder truth. You cannot be powerful and pitiful at the same time. Victimhood feels safe. It offers explanation. It lets us off the hook, but it also cages us, because the moment you believe everything is happening to you stop realizing what can happen through you. The Stoic refuses this role. He acknowledges hardship without surrendering to it. He feels the sting but doesn't build an identity around the wound. Imagine being passed over for a promotion. The mind rushes in. They don't see me. It's not fair. I always lose. But the Stoic pauses. He asks, what can I learn from this? What feedback haven't I requested? What skill can I sharpen regardless of outcome? This is not denial, it's redirection. It's turning the energy of resentment into fuel for refinement. Because once you stop needing the world to cooperate with your expectations, you begin to cooperate with your own potential. This shift is not small. It is the difference between spiraling and growing, between stagnation and resilience. Self-victimization isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers, "This always happens to me. People never understand. I can't help it, that's just who I am." Stoicism replies, you are not your story. You are your response. That response begins the moment you ask not, why me, but what now? And that single shift, from blame to ownership, from helplessness to agency, changes everything. What comes next is the most overlooked source of mental clarity in modern life. The Stoics called it retreat, but it's not escape. It's the return to your own soul. Seneca advised, retire into yourself as much as possible. Not because the world is bad, but because it's loud, because there's a deeper voice in you. And you'll never hear it in the noise of constant activity, conversation, and validation. We fear solitude in our time. We equate being alone with being abandoned. We fill silence with scrolling. We chase distraction to avoid reflection. But the Stoics taught that solitude is sacred, not a retreat from life, but a return to yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He ruled an empire, and yet he longed not for escape but for stillness, for the clarity that comes when you are finally free from the audience and alone with your own questions. That's what solitude gives you, a space not to perform, but to remember, to ask, what am I actually chasing? What do I truly value? Am I living by my own compass or someone else's? Solitude isn't loneliness, it's alignment. It's where you see which habits serve you, which voices are yours, which emotions need to be held, and which should be released. And paradoxically, when you return from solitude, you bring more to others, more patience, more clarity, more presence, because you've stopped trying to be everything to everyone. You've returned to being someone for yourself. In solitude, you learn to become your own witness, to sit with what you'd rather escape, to hold tension without needing to fix it. Epictetus taught that true peace is internal order, and that kind of order requires space, silence, honest inquiry. Even 10 minutes a day without noise, without answers, without agenda, can begin to shift you. Because when you stop absorbing the world, you start hearing your own soul again. So go there. often, not to hide, but to remember. We now arrive at the final lesson, where all these principles converge. A closing reflection on what it means to truly live as a modern Stoic, not just in theory, but in being. If you've come this far, you're not simply curious about Stoicism. You're living it. Not because you've mastered the principles, but because you've chosen to walk with them step by step, question by question. You've chosen presence over performance, reflection over reaction, discipline over distraction. This path is not glamorous. It won't hand you applause, but it will give you something better: peace that doesn't break under pressure, clarity that doesn't need confirmation, and strength that grows in silence. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, they didn't write for prestige. They wrote to stay sane, to stay centered, to stay human in a world that constantly tried to pull them away from themselves. That's what you've practiced here today. You've touched on 7 pillars of modern Stoic living. Focused attention in a world that celebrates fragmentation, self-control in place of impulsive reaction, preparation for what may come, not with fear, but with readiness, voluntary, hardship as a path to inner strength, the rejection of victimhood in favor of agency, solitude not as escape, but as alignment, and above all, choosing character over comfort. These are not theories, they are tools. They are anchors for the next hard conversation, the next unexpected loss, the next moment you want to run but choose to stay. So remember this: you are not here to be perfect. You are here to be practiced. You are not here to be invulnerable. You are here to be resilient. And that resilience grows every time you pause, reflect, choose, and keep walking. If this letter spoke to you, comment below. I walk the Stoic path, one step, one choice at a time. Let it be your signature, your vow, not to me, to yourself. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it not for updates, but for discipline, for space, for a reason to return to this path day after day. Every like, every share, every reflection brings this quiet strength to one more person who needs it. Not noise, not hype, just truth. Stay a moment longer. Let the silence after this video become your first practice. Don't click away, don't move yet, let it settle, let it anchor. Let the calm you found here carry you back into the world, not as someone surviving it, but as someone shaping yourself within it. This was Letters to a Stoic Mind. We'll meet again.